Hey world, welcome to the Sherese Nicole Podcast. I created this space where I'll discuss life lessons, personal stories, observations, unsolicited advice, and ramblings that go on in my chattering mind. Every so often, I will pull in guests to provide different perspectives and discuss a range of topics from nutrition to travel and all things in between. So without further ado, let's get into it. So today's episode is super special because I have featured one of my first guests on the podcast. Her name is Jenna. And it's funny enough because in my intro, I said that I was going to bring on guests to talk about things such as travel and nutrition. And when I said travel, I thought of Jenna right now. So Jenna, thank you for being on my podcast. I appreciate it so much. And please give a rundown of who you are, what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Hi, guys. I am Jenna. I run a travel and lifestyle blog called jennasworldview.com. I am the main muse behind my content, obviously, because it's heavily inspired by my travels, my life, my views. I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I'm not afraid to use my voice. And I use my voice a lot on my platform. I've been running my blog for just a little bit over 2 years now. I'm based here in London and I have Caribbean roots. I'm half Jamaican and Guyanese. And although I've grown up in London, Britain, I don't really feel British, but that's a conversation for another day. But that's me in a nutshell.
So it's actually a really cool story of how Jenna and I met because I live in Toronto, she lives in London. But for those that don't know, I did my first solo travel to London, I think it was 2018. And leading up to going over there, I asked friends, I was like, do you know anyone that lives there? My friend put me in contact with another mutual friend of ours, Candice, who is also a blogger. She invited me to an Instagram group of other bloggers and from London. And then, I took a look around and I interacted with the group members. And for some reason, I came across your page and I was like, she's a travel blogger. Okay, she must know a lot about London. Let me ask her for some advice. So I slid into her DMs and I was just like,
as you do.
I was like, hey, I'm Sherese from Toronto. I'm coming to London. Can you give me tips? And then that's when you told me about the Vegan Nights event.
To Vegan Night. Yeah. So it happens every first Thursday of the month. And I thought, let's check it out.
Yeah, you were like, this is happening, I'm going to go there. And I was like, okay. So I bought the ticket, but I didn't know that you were going with me at the time that I bought the ticket. I just thought that I was going by myself. But then you were like, yeah, I got the ticket. And then we just kept in contact. And then when I visited London, Jen and I met up and it was honestly, it was just energy. We just clicked. Yes. It was, and it's funny because, there was a guy that I met that night and he was like, oh, you were with your friend. And I was like, I just met her that night. He's like, for real? He couldn't
Oh my gosh.
He was just like, no, it seemed like you guys knew each other for longer. And I'm like, I know, it was just natural.
Because it definitely felt like that. When we first we spoke before, but when we finally saw each other, it was like, oh girl, I've known you for ages. It was that kind of vibe. So I definitely agree with you there.
I know, it was just a vibe. But yeah, thank you so much for showing me around. That was great. And and because of that, it's so funny because of that story. And I posted my blog about meeting you and everything like that. Somebody else from the state slid into my DMs and she's like, hey, I read your post about London. I'm coming to Toronto. Can you help me find some places to go? And so I did the same with her. I met up with her and we it was, yeah. It's crazy how the universe works, I guess.
I know that's true. And obviously the power of social media. I guess when you're using social media, you have to be very cautious, but then you have to be very open because you don't know who's going to slide into your DMs. I mean, it could be your next big blessing or your next connection. So always kind of be open-minded when you're scrolling through the gram.
Thank God. Honestly, I'm pro DMs, and I'll talk about that on a whole other episode. But yeah,
you and me both.
So yes, you have content online and you're a travel blogger. I know that you're getting more into doing more videos and YouTube and everything. Gosh. And just you inspire me with the content because I remember once you had a post and it was about, you have to self-promote, you have to be your own promoter. And I was like, that's something I struggle with because yes, I create content, But then
Uh-huh.
it's like sometimes I don't push it as much as I should because I don't want to feel like I'm big or like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then but you just rewrote a blog post about like just doing it anyways. Like
Yeah, that's really like my secret. I think one of my secret powers is my self-confidence. Like I could
Mhm.
probably sell my whole self to Stevie Wonder and he can't see me, but
Wow.
by the time we finish meeting each other, he's gonna want to invest in the blog and whatnot. And
Mhm.
that's just really like my life formula. Like if you don't promote yourself, then who really will?
Mhm.
And when I started my blog like 2 years ago, I mean, coming into the big blogging community, you're like, it's like a needle in a haystack. So I
Mhm.
had to get my voice out there. I had to, promote and say, oh, read my blog, like read my blog. Like I put out a blog every week. And then it got to the point where I don't really have to promote that much anymore because people look forward to a new blog coming and then they'll share it with other people. So closed mouths never get fed.
It's
Closed
true.
mouths don't get fed. If you don't speak and if you don't put yourself out there, no one's gonna go hard for you or your brand or what you believe in as much as you will.
Mhm.
And that's what I feel. That's what I've noticed that being a content creator. Yes, it's great to have friends and people may repost here and there, but you're gonna have to, do the groundwork, hit the ground running, and push. Because if you don't, who's gonna do
It's so true. But I feel like you just have that, like, you just have that innate confidence. Like, I'm, like, building my own confidence, and then on top of that, I have to, like, pull in other people with it too. So it's like, anyways, I'm just inspired by that. But, you use Twitter a lot. You use Twitter, right, to, like, connect with bloggers, and that's one
Yeah, I
one
love Twitter.
platform that I didn't use much of yet. So it's like, can you say
Hmm.
that a lot of your readership came from your Twitter community or
Yes, because well, I think the first year or the first 2 years, my first year of blogging, most of my traffic came from Twitter because that's where I would use to promote and connect with other bloggers because there's a real big blogging community on Twitter and like you would have your comment thread. So, you'll post your latest post and they'll post the latest post. But aside from Twitter, when I first started using it for my blog, like you can use Twitter to promote. Like, okay, I got a new blog post, read it. But then there's another part of Twitter where you can kind of showcase your personality. You can talk about, popular topics and you can kind of get involved. So I said I'm going to use Twitter to do both. So
Mhm.
you'll see me promoting my blog post, but then if something's happening, you're going to see me putting my 2 cents in that way. So I kind of built up my online presence by promoting my blog, but then I'll be talking about what's going on in the shade room or, what
Yeah.
before, because I've had to leave the shade room now. But when I was in my early days, like that's how we kind of build up my online presence, just engaging with people on Twitter. And it really helped me. I feel like a year after, I was able to promote my first event just from being on
Right.
Twitter and engaging and
Mhm.
finding other Black content creators. It's really helped push my platform further. Like I love Twitter.
Yeah.
That's one of my platforms that I really like using. I feel like you just kind of have to find your online tribe or community
Yeah.
and then you just kind of go from there.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to be utilizing all the platforms just to push
Yes,
this podcast and
push you have
also my
yes.
brand.
Yeah, and and the thing is you're going to be you're going to find other people who are doing the same thing, and then that's how collaborations come about, because some of my best collaborations have come about through meeting people on Twitter. I think a few Christmases ago I did a post about a Bayless Christmas, being single at Christmas.
I remember
I've
that.
done posts, dating older guys or being single and not having children, and most of those collaborations have come through Twitter. So you can utilize these platforms to build your brand. You just have
Mhm.
to know what you're doing and navigate the right way, because you don't want to get yourself in a Twitter scandal, and they happen every other day.
I just yeah. Yeah. There was
Yeah.
one blogger that got canceled the other day. I was like, "Damn." And it was based off of old tweets like
You
years
see?
ago.
Exactly. So you have to, you got to be mindful. I feel like with every social media platform, you just have to use wisdom. And I feel like with platforms like Twitter, it can be so easy to tweet. You may react to something and tweet, but I feel like you
Mhm.
have to use wisdom and think before you press send, because
Definitely. But then
that can be career ending.
true, but I think in this blogger's case, like, she didn't know 10 years later that she'd be, like, a YouTube
Yeah.
famous, so it's like
That's been happening quite
yeah,
a lot. That's been happening quite a lot. I
yeah.
know, and it comes up with the question of like, do people change, and should we forgive them? It's been bringing up big conversation. It's a hard one.
So you just brought it up. You mentioned that you posted your own first event. That was it last summer?
Yes, it was last summer. It was, I think, August the 3rd or August the 2nd last year. And the reason why I did my summer day party, my blog had hit, I think, 20,000 views. And I thought it would be a great way to connect with other content creators as well as my readers, kind of give them a day of like networking, discussion panels, food, drink, so just kind of give them a great way of kind of getting to know me offline. I sold out, which is good. I sold out.
How did how did you put that together? Honestly, like, how did you do it?
How did that come about? So March is my blog's anniversary. So 2nd of March, that's when my baby was born, 2nd of March 2018. So last year, which would have been 1 year, would be my first year of blogging. I was like, do you know what? I really want to celebrate everything that I've done in my first year of blogging. And I feel like the best way to do that is to kind of bring together, do like a little celebration. And then that's how the JWB Day Party was born, literally off that one idea. And then I went and found the venue, and then I had to kind of create what the day was going to be about. And you know what? I wish I had documented it as much, but I didn't. And the process was very, very stressful putting on an event. Because remember, I'm a new blogger. I'm not like a big influencer. So I was worried that people wasn't going to come, but they came and I sold out. And I feel like the readers got a chance to kind of connect with the girl off the Twitter timeline. So, you know, my family was there and you could learn a bit more about why I started the blog and what I plan to do with it going forward. It was such a good day. It was such a good day. Like, I would definitely do it again.
Yeah, again, inspiring to see, because I'm like, it's just that confidence, like, you know, that, yeah, and as well as hitting, you said 20,000 views? 20,000? Yeah, like
20,000.
I have a lot to do with my blog. Okay. I have to really take my time and get my numbers up like you. But no, I think that is so dope. And then you made merch for it. You had shirts, you had all that stuff.
T-shirts and cups and notebooks and giveaways and those. It was you know what? I'm very, very proud of the event, because especially for it being my first one. And people like that. I have you always see me in my Jenna's Love You t-shirt. I'm always promoting. I'm always, you know, making sure that you see the brand and, you know, and things like that. I'm proud of that. Because, you know, sometimes you kind of downplay some things and you feel like, oh, it's not big enough, but really it's a really big thing. And with my event was something that I'm actually, you know, I'm really proud about, thinking about it a year later.
And it's like, you said something interesting. You said, you know, you're like, I'm not a big influencer. It's just me, like when you were worried about your ticket selling. And I'm like, honestly, like, we need to start walking as if we are, talking as if we are, acting as if we are, because
like, I know what you mean, because then it's like that whole line of, because I feel like a few years ago, I didn't really know what to do with my confidence. And I knew that I used to make people a bit uncomfortable, and I used to sometimes tone myself down because I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, I'm overstepping the mark, but then I'm not being my true self. And, you know, sometimes elements of that does creep in a little bit, like, oh, I'm a small influencer. My friends and my family hate when I say that. They're like, you're not a small influencer, you're not small, like, think, you know, that you can do it. But sometimes it kind of creeps in because society kind of makes you feel like, even as a Black woman, you know, you can be confident but not too confident. You kind of have to tailor. You know, sometimes I feel like in the past I've had to kind of tailor, you know, tone my confidence down when I'm in particular rooms. But now, you know, I'm learning to just be at one with it. And this is who I am, you know, take me as I am, and things like that. So yeah, I'm still adjusting to that one.
No, you do a good job. Like, I'm no, it's great. It's great. We were talking before about not having it all figured out, not being sure of what we're doing. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like, you know, not doing enough. I feel like probably even people who are at the top, is highest rank, Beyonce probably feels like she's not doing enough, but she's done so much. And I don't know, it's something that I think I definitely struggle with it from time to time, because even as I'm sitting here talking to you about my event, like, I used to think that it was something small, but it was a big thing. Like, I feel like, you know, I didn't hit that mark I haven't reached that climate because, I'm not 30 yet and I haven't got this done and I haven't got that done. But I'm coming to terms of just trying to be okay with that. Because sometimes you can really just keep pressurizing yourself, like, oh, you haven't got this and you need to do this. And you always feel like you're not doing enough if you set crazy goals for yourself. Like I journal, and I was cleaning out my house, like my room 2 days ago, and I found journals from 2009, and I've written some goals that, I haven't hit some of them yet because they're not realistic or it's not in God's timing right now. But you can see that and feel like, oh, am I really doing something? Or someone can get married or someone's just bought a house and you're thinking,
comparison.
You can't, do you know what I mean? It's just natural. It's natural to feel like, oh, what am I doing? And where am I going? But that's where that self-reflective practice comes in, and you really have to keep pulling yourself back down to just know that what's for you will be for you when it's your time. It is, it's your time. You can't put pressure on what somebody else is doing. You just need to be focused on staying aligned with what you need to be doing. And that's where it goes like, oh, I'm not doing enough. No, you just need to cut that out and focus. And sometimes I do it, even though I know, you know the knowledge, you know what you shouldn't be doing, but you still do it anyway. So it's just pulling yourself back in and being like, listen, everything will just come. I feel like even with the lockdown, like I had plans, the things I wanted to do in 2020, and COVID-19 has come and shut down shop.
Yep.
And, I think I was sitting down with it maybe like 4 weeks ago, and I was stressing myself out like, oh my gosh, I said I was going to do this. And then, but I'm not responsible for a global pandemic.
How we react matters.
But, do you know what I mean? How we react and how we respond. And it's just like, chill out, like chill out. Like so many people had plans and COVID-19 has shut them out. I'm not the only one. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like I found a bit of comfort in that. Like I'm not the only one who's just saying, okay, do you know what? Things are not going the way I would have liked them to do, but I'm still alive. You have to kind of look at the things in the grand scheme. Yes, like we're still alive. To still be alive in June 2020 when there's a global pandemic, that says a lot. Worrying about not doing enough makes no sense. It just makes no sense. And I just had to kind of, sometimes you have to pull your own socks up and tell your own self off, like, chill out. Chill out. And I feel like, society does that to us, and there's just so many pressures out there. There's this, I don't know who came up with it, but we think that we're supposed to have it all together by a particular age, and sometimes it don't work like that. Like you probably might not cash your first million until you're 37, but you wanted it by 30, and that's not how it's gonna go. And I feel like that's where I'm just like, you know what, let me chill, let me not put that pressure on myself, and let me not worry about doing enough, because I'm doing what I can. Doing what you can is much more important than, oh, okay, checklist. No.
Like, what's the next thing? And I think that's the great thing about the pandemic is it's forced people to slow down and be reflective. Like, what are you doing with your time? I think a lot of people like yourself, like you're saying, it's like, it's not what's next on the list. A lot of people are realizing that they've filled up voids in their life with busyness.
Oh my God.
And it's
the voids of, they think like productivity and doing so many things, and it's like and a lot of people do that because they're running away from themselves, they're running away from the self-work. COVID-19 has come to, I would say, kill, steal, and destroy, because the self-work, the self-reflection hits different. Like I'm looking at myself in a way I've never looked at myself before. Like I'm looking at my journals and my goals, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I want that. It's really come to bring clarity, and it's taken away the clutter, because I feel like when you're going about your day to day, so you'll get up at 6, you'll work out 7, you'll eat, you'll get breakfast, you'll make your way to work, you'll go to work, you come home. You're constantly on the go. Do you know what I mean? I feel like with COVID-19, it's come and it's slowed everything down. And I've really had the chance to look at my life differently and think deeper. And do I really want this? Is this what I really want to do? Is this where I really want to go? And I'm glad that I've had that time, because I just feel like if this didn't come, I would have gone into another direction.
And that may have not been what was God destined for you,
Right,
right? So it
exactly.
comes all full circle. That's how I see it.
Because
And
our wants and desires are not necessarily what God wants. You know that, right?
all in divine timing, like you said it perfectly. Another thing I wanted to mention was that you had mentioned like chasing or what's next, like taking off what's next on the list. A lot of people are chasing success and happiness, but don't even stop to smell the roses and what you've done and count your small wins. And those are just as
Yes.
important as like the big wins.
Learning to be kind to yourself
Mm-hmm.
when you haven't been kind to yourself before can be difficult. Adulthood is about unlearning, relearning, and doing the work. So
A
being
lot.
kind to yourself wasn't something that I don't remember being sat down and said, hey, you got to be kind to yourself Monday to Friday. I kind of
Mm-hmm,
learned
mm-hmm,
that, and a lot of adults kind of struggle with it. Even
mm-hmm.
me time, like they say on Insecure, like self-care Sundays. Self-care, you listen, you have to be about your self-care, be about your self-love. Like
Prioritize
those
it.
are two bags that you need to be deep in, even if you're single or even if you're in a relationship. Like those two things, you need to be so deep in your self-love and your self-care bag, because looking after yourself is key.
To you, to the relationships you have, to your family, to your friends. Like if you don't have that strong
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
foundation within yourself, you'll
mm-hmm.
definitely crumble. That's something that I'm also exploring with myself. And it's always like it's a journey, right? It's a self-love
Mm-hmm.
journey, it's a healing journey that I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a process. Every day though, I'm getting better and better. And it takes a lot of self-reflection. Like
Mm-hmm.
you, I journal. I stop and I ask myself questions. I listen to my thoughts. I meditate. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many ways that I have to just hold myself accountable to
Yeah.
the thoughts, the habits, and the patterns that I do on a day to day basis. But I'm glad that this is bringing
Mm-hmm.
out more of that sort of introspection within other people during this time.
Mm.
So needed.
It's like people are seeing things differently now. I
Hmm.
wrote a post and I even said like self-reflection in quarantine, lockdown hits differently, because it's like, oh, I thought I knew myself, but the beauty of the self is that there's so many layers to uncover.
Hmm.
There's so many beautiful layers to uncover, and that's why I always push. I'm always telling people, like, you gotta dig deep. Like, you
Hmm.
always have to dig deep, and I'm just so happy for this time that I've done that. And in 6 months' time, I probably will dig even more deeper. But
Hmm.
that's the beauty of loving yourself and growing and adulthood. That's what it's all about.
Hmm. So, like another thing you said is like you had to, like being an adult is about having to unlearn, relearn, and then like put into
Mm,
action things. Like,
mhm.
how do you hold yourself accountable to all this unlearning and learning? Like, how do you make sure you're always on top of it? Are you always on top of it? How are you gonna judge whether you're better or grown from 6 months from now? Like, how are you doing it?
I think situations will come and prove to you whether you've progressed or not. And
That's true.
that their situations will really teach you whether you're really doing the work.
Hmm.
Situations will come and teach you if you're really listening to the word and putting it into action. I know that for a fact. Life is always the best teacher. So I usually take my reactions and how I respond to things. That lets me know if the work has been done, if the work's been successful,
Mm-hmm.
or if I need to go back to my notes. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's things like road rage, or if somebody says something crazy, I'm gonna nab their head off. Do you know what I mean? It's like you kind of have to stop and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
hold up a minute. This ain't like you. You're never gonna be on top of it Monday to Friday. Let's just be honest with ourselves,
That's
because we're
real.
human.
Mm-hmm.
It's human. Like, even you're never gonna be on your top game, but I think everybody knows when they're not performing at their best capacity. Like, when you're not giving it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
When you could do better. And I feel like when you're, on top or in line with your self-reflective practice and your self-journaling or whatever you do to kind of come back into you,
Mm-hmm.
when you've hit a low point, a low point. So I don't try to beat myself back up on it, but I know that I need to get back in my game. It's like my prayer life. Like, I know I might take a week or two off, and I know I'm not operating at that capacity because I haven't
Mm-hmm.
been tapping into my prayers and stuff like that. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's always a click for me. It's always a click for me that I know that, hey, you're falling off. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want no one telling me I'm falling off. I'm like that. So I'd rather pull my socks up
Uh,
before someone has to come and say, listen, Jenna, what's going on around there? Do you know what I
that's good
mean? Like,
though. Mm-hmm.
it's, it's good, but sometimes it's good to have someone to push you, but I don't rely on it, because
Right.
that's where I like to have that accountability going on. Because remember, what I learned about adulthood is it can be quite lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Although we have friends and although we have family, but the self-work is lonely, and I don't always want to rely on my brother to check
You
me, or
can't.
one of my good
Yeah.
girlfriends to say, sis, something's not right. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be, self-sufficient, but not in a way where I would refuse help. But
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, where I know, like, I need to do better. And that's it with me. Like, I have my days, but I there's always a bigger goal. So whether I don't feel like I want to give my all over the next 3 days, I know that that's not going to work for the rest of the year. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I sort of judge it. And like I said, situations and my risk, you're growing up, if you've grown up, or if you still got some work to do.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah. I know some days, some weeks I fall off and then I have to go back to my notepad and be
Yeah,
like, okay, like you did this,
back
you
to the
got
drawing
really
board.
angry without going through,
Yeah.
a sequence of questions of why you're getting angry. Like, yeah, I get it.
I think people were struggling at the start of lockdown because people don't like their own company.
They
Listen to me,
don't,
people do not like their own company. They don't like their own thoughts. They don't like the silence. they
especially
don't
for
like
people
it.
that
They
were
don't
so
like the
busy.
silence.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's why I always say, like, no, you need that time. You need that time to dig into yourself and yourself together.
Mm-hmm.
Because silence can be scary, loneliness can be scary, but you need to be self-sufficient. You can't always rely on other people.
And what's funny about that is like, even though like anywhere I have a naturopath, I've worked with a naturopath before, I've had a therapist
Mm-hmm,
before. And the one thing they always
mm-hmm.
tell me is, I can't heal you. You got to do that.
Oh,
You
preach.
gotta you gotta put in that work. And
Mm-hmm,
that's with anything,
mm-hmm.
right? If you want to get straight A's in school, if you want to be like top
You gotta put in
performing
the
at
work.
work, like it's all
Mm-hmm.
you. It starts with you, it ends with you. It's all about you. So
And that's the thing. You have to. I mean, it pays. What's the saying? It pays the cost to be the boss. Like,
yeah.
you have to put that work in, and that's the same thing. Goes what I mean about. Sorry, it goes back to the same thing I was saying about, like, going hard for your brand and
Mm-hmm.
going hard for you, because they're not going to see your vision, your purpose, and your calling, and your vision is God given. Only God can put that inside of you, and only you can bring that out. People can support you along the way. Like, I'm here with you recording for your podcast, but you're the one who's got the ball rolling. People will
Yep.
support you, but you have to do the work. You have
Yeah.
to tap in. You have to push and say, I'm gonna start.
Mm-hmm.
It's all on you, it's all on your shoulders. And people always say, oh, how do you get started? And what made you? It's always hard for me, because it's always an inside thing.
Yeah.
It's always an inside thing. Like,
It's true.
my journey, I started my blog after a break. Like I had a breakup, and then I went on my whole traveling journey, and then I just had this thing to go and start this blog. And I didn't know that through starting a blog, 2 years later, I would be sitting on your podcast. Do you know what I mean? The blog was
Look at
created,
that.
and
Mm-hmm.
do you know what I mean? I created my blog, and I connected with other people, and so many things started happening, and it started
Mm-hmm.
together like a piece of the puzzle. But I started. God put that desire in me, and I brought it to life.
Mm-hmm.
And with the help of others, but again, it started with me hearing the call and getting the work done.
I get
And
it.
that's how it works. Like, you have to be willing to say, do you know what? I'm gonna start today. I'm gonna write. I want to be a
Yeah.
writer. I'm gonna write for 30 minutes today, or
Mm-hmm.
I want to do this. I want to better my skills. It just starts with you saying, let me give it a go.
You got to decide and put in that
Yes.
action. It's not just the thoughts and, da, 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 da. Nah, you got to put
Mm-hmm.
in that work. And it's so similar to, how my journey started with my blog. It started just with
Mm-hmm.
ShereseNicole.com. And that was just my creative outlet. But then, then I started to open up my Instagram, and that was like more about my food journal and my healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, this is
Yeah.
doing so well. Like, let me hop on YouTube. And then YouTube happened. And then I was like, okay, well, where can I take this brand? And now it's a podcast, now it's like, I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like this podcast is just like a roundup of who I am completely, yes, there's the blog
Yes.
component.
Yes.
Yes, there's the food journal healing aspect, but then there's also like, I like to talk about things like this, life, motivation, like
Mm-hmm.
desires, dreams. So
And that's
Yeah,
because you decided to say, I'm going to start.
I'm just gonna do it. And but
Exactly.
yeah, like you, it was like a voice. It was just not really a voice. It was more of like a feeling, like an urge, like a calling almost. It's like you need to do
mm,
this. You need to do
that
this,
resonates with me. That
right?
resonates with me because, yeah, after my breakup, I said I needed I just wanted a fresh start.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a burning desire to say, do you know what? That's my old life. I need a refresh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how it came about. And then it will be so simple because people are like, oh, I don't know what to do. And they want the cake. And God has given them
Yep.
the eggs, the sugar, and the flour. They're just not paying attention to mix the ingredients.
All right. Or they just don't want to do it.
They just don't want to do it. Like you've got the thing is, it's so crazy because there are people walking around with multi-billion-dollar and pound ideas, but
So
they
many
are
ideas.
just not tapping in. They've got the ideas and they're just not tapping in, and that's all it takes for you to tap in. And it's like you're gonna hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm. Start.
Start.
It's
Oh, that's the word. Start.
just start.
Start.
You know what? And you know what? I don't really, there's a lot of people that I know that have amazing ideas, but they don't act on them. And it's like, I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to say that you're wasting your life, but it'll come to them when it comes to them. And it's like, I get that as well, because like, listen, I had an idea to do podcasts. Maybe I thought of this maybe 5 years ago, but I wasn't ready then. I wasn't going to do
You
it then.
see?
You know what I mean? So it's like people just come into themselves and they kind of build up that courage from within. Some of them pursue it, some don't, but either way,
Oh, I
in
like what
divine
you said
timing.
about coming into themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because that's very important. That's very important because I know a lot of people who have a lot of ideas and they say, oh, I had this idea to do something, but somebody else done it. And I'm just like, do you know what? They probably wasn't ready or they missed the opportunity to start.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have to, like I said, come into yourself. If you're not coming into yourself, if you're not doing that reflective practice, something ain't right. People were more, as soon as they wake up, they're checking their phone. They're ready to tap into social media.
Mm-hmm.
Have they tapped into themselves? Have they
That's
taken
important.
that moment? You know what I mean? Have they taken that? They sliding into DMs, but have they slid into, what's going on in their mind? And they're not doing that. That's why I said people love distractions.
So
And the
crazy.
self work is
Mm-hmm.
difficult. Starting is difficult, but the rewards are beautiful.
It's a journey.
It's
That's
a
what we're on the life.
journey.
That's why we're on earth. Like I think about it all the time. Like really, why was I born in this body? Why do I have access to the things that I do?
Yes.
Like why, now I'm online, now I have a platform. Like what can I do with this? Like I always continuously question, like, what is this for? What's my purpose? And I think a lot of it is to, give back, but also to, I say a journey of self-discovery. And like all these things along the way are just helping me get there. But yeah.
And another thing as well is the beauty of being online and connecting with people online is you just never know who's watching, who's reading. You never know who's reading, because I shared, like when I first started my blog, I didn't want to share, I had no intention whatsoever to talk about, my breakup. It wasn't even on my agenda. And then as the blog started, something just said to me, you need to get this out there. You need to share this. And it's more like it was even like a spiritual transaction. It was like, the moment I share this and get it out there, I'm going to go on to a next level. And when I shared my breakup experience, there were women messaging me on Instagram saying, I would never open up about something like that, but you did, and I thank you so much because you gave me courage. And I was getting so many messages about my experience, and I was saying, God, like, did you allow me to go through that just to write this so somebody could read it and be like, you know what, if she can do that, then do you know what I mean? It's like your story will resonate with somebody somewhere, and that's why you must tell it, and that's why you must go out and do what you created to do, because someone somewhere will benefit from it, and someone somewhere will benefit from that, and it's just, you just never know who's watching,
whose lives
who's
you're
paying
touching
attention
too. Yeah.
Yes, like I even received an email today. Somebody read my latest post about being childless, chilling, so not having children before 30 or whatever. And she was like, I loved it. I connected with it. Please, can you write for my platform? when I wrote that post, I just wanted to get, my perspective and other women's perspectives, but that has led to a new opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. You never know who's watching and who's connecting. So do what you need to do. Put it out there, share, tell your story and do what, connect with people, because you just never know
You never
where
know
it
whose
might
lives can
take
touch.
you.
This reminds me
Yeah.
of when I was watching Versus. I think it was Jill Scott and Erykah Badu, and I watched that whole thing. And one of them were
That was
talking.
so spiritual.
Yes, it's so spiritual. Because you know how Jill Scott is just so like poetic with her lyrics and just anyway. So she was saying that if you have things to write, or if you have like that creativity, something in you, it's your responsibility to share it. Like, it's almost selfish if you keep it to yourself. You need to share it with the world, because someone needs to hear your story. Someone's going to resonate with it. Someone is going to, it's going to help someone else's life. So that's what I thought about when you said that just now. And it, like, I also get the same kind of messages on my YouTube channel with like the recipes I share. It's just me, pressing record and sharing the food that I make. But, someone left me a long message. They're like, oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so fatigued and I have a 5-year-old and I can't think of any new recipe ideas to make, but you gave me, so much inspiration or an idea. And I'm just thinking, I'm just chilling, doing my thing. And I don't even realize sometimes, how impactful what I'm doing is touching someone else's lives, or how purposeful it is. And I'm just so grateful.
No, and that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful place to be. And just, having the heart of gratitude and being thankful for that, because I feel like people feel like influence to them represents followers, and influence to them represents big stages. But God says, if you can't look after the small things, then how can I enlarge your territory for the bigger things? So the small space that we may say it's small, but we don't know who we are reaching, and we don't know how much we're giving to somebody reading or somebody watching, and that can grow into something on a larger scale. Influence isn't about followers and numbers. It's about whose hearts you're touching, who's learning something new from you, who's taking something away from you. That's real influence. That's real influence. Where you can read something and be like, oh yes, it's a gift. Like, that's real influence. And that's what I try to I only see it now. You first, you're starting something, you never can imagine how big something will be. And that's why I always try to pray and just try to say, God, just enlarge me, not enlarge me, but let me connect. I always ask to be connected with the right people. That was one of the things I prayed for my blog, was that I would connect with the right people, and that the right people will take to it. That's all I've asked, because I feel like when you connect with those who you're supposed to be aligned with, everything else will follow.
Agree. Okay, so girl, I know we got into so many topics just now, and I know for sure I have to get you back on another episode. Like, that's just gonna happen.
I will be back.
So because there's so many other topics I want to go into more detail with you. Before we wrap up this episode, how can the listeners keep in contact with you? What is next for Jenna's Worldview? What do you got going
on? So everybody can find my website at www.jennasworldview.com, and that's JENNA. I'm on Twitter at Jenna's Worldview. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook, and I'm definitely on Instagram. I think what's next for me is just dipping into more visual content, a lot more blog posts, and a lot more collabs, and a lot more travels. When those borders open, your girl will be out there catching those flights, and kind of bringing in that more travel content. So you can expect that from me, and more lifestyle pieces. So that's my next thing. But one thing I would just want to leave with everybody is that don't be afraid to use your voice. Your voice is your power. Your voice, brings forth your purpose, and just don't be afraid to use it, and don't be afraid to tap in. So if you want to, read more about me and see some of my travel adventures, please connect with me at www.jennasworldview.com. If you heard the episode, feel free to slide into my DMs too, and we can chop it up. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. This is perfect.